Welcome to Thomas and Claire's Italian Adventure Part 8.
Sure.
Um, we recognize that we have been slacking in our video taking, but it's not entirely our fault because we haven't really had Wi Fi or even phone service for the last few days. So that's our excuse. So we're currently in Venice, but we're going to back up a couple days and talk about our experience in Pisa and then going into Tuscany. Well, I guess Pisa is in Tuscany, but in San Gimignano and Volterra. Go ahead.
So first we left Cinque Terre. We took our little car and wove our way out and went down the freeway. And it's not really out of the way to stop at Pisa. It's along the coast. So we stopped and we followed Rick Steve's guide to a parking lot and then took a little tiny shuttle, which went like 3 blocks. And you can get out and wander in, and there's the Leaning Tower. So we went and saw their Duomo and their cathedral, but really we were just there to see this leaning tower, and it was still leaning.
Yeah, we didn't end up doing very much because we didn't have that much time, and I didn't
really
like Pisa at all.
There's not really much.
It was really I don't know, it just felt really touristy
The
and really
streets were
industrial.
wider, like in that part, and they were just paved with like hotels and tourist restaurants. So we found one that was decent, and we ate there. Um, and then we like got back and left, and when we were leaving, it's more of like a functioning town.
It's not very charming.
So it's got like, we went through like more of an industrial section. Yeah, I mean it's really just right at the Leaning Tower is kind of their claim to fame. Everything else is completely forgettable. But we saw it.
I mean,
paid 50 cents for bathrooms.
It's it leans like
it's very
15
leaning.
feet, I think.
15 feet,
yeah.
It's
like
a couple degrees, yeah. But it's very obvious it's leaning. So we took our token pictures where we're holding it up, which you'll see later. We left.
Yeah. Then we drove to our agriturismo in Tuscany, and an agriturismo is a place you stay that is a working farm of some sort. So in order to be qualified as an agriturismo, like by the government standards, they have to make the majority of their money from some other agricultural product, which is usually wine or olive oil or both. So we stayed at Cesani Vineyards, which makes wine
and
olive oil,
and they honey.
Yeah, and they grow saffron, which is
yeah.
apparently pretty common there in Tuscany as well. Yeah, so we pulled up. We probably got there about 4 or something, and it was really nice. It's they're pretty rustic-y. I mean,
yeah.
they're working farms, and they have like a really nice tasting room and whatever for the winery.
And it's up on sort of a ridge, so you see down into this valley. It's very picturesque.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And we had a very nice basic room. I mean,
yeah, it was just like an older room with a bed and not much else. I think a table and a little bathroom, but it was still bigger than one in Rome.
Well, the room itself was actually quite large.
The room itself was large,
but it was
very old, kind of dimly lit. I mean, it wasn't like modern. It was much more rustic, farmhousey kind of.
But it was nice, and we had a really nice time there. And what did we do that evening?
We
went to the pool for a little bit.
We both got kind of bit up by mosquitoes, so we had to abandon that. And then we went into the town.
Yeah, so the closest town is San Gimignano, which is a hill town. They call it like the hill towns of central Italy because Tuscany has these beautiful rolling hills. I mean, it kind of reminds us of the Willamette Valley a little bit, except I would say sort of bigger.
Yeah, bigger foothills.
Yeah, but then there's these, up on these hills, you have these big, like walled towns.
They're like from the 1200s, and so it was in the times when you actually needed like fortresses for your towns. So they actually started as a walled fortress sort of town that would sit on top of the hill because it was more defensible. And so now you have these towns like Volterra, which we'll talk about in a second, and they have these towers, these big medieval looking towers, and they're all up on a hill with a big old wall around them.
really cool when you drive. Like we have some pictures with like San Gimignano in the background, and they're cool. I mean, it's just these beautiful hills, and then it's just boom, like big. I mean, they're
Yeah,
not big cities; they're just
San
towns.
Gimignano
But
had like 5 or 6 big towers too, so
mhm,
that made it pretty unique. But it's cool. It's like there's usually like one main drag or maybe like two main drags in the town, and that'll be kind of like any street in like Florence, sort of the way it's fairly wide and it's all paved stones and it has shops on either side and restaurants. And then there's a bunch of little alleyways, but it's all sloped. You know, you're going up and then you're going down, and you're going up and down.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, and you can kind of go off on the little side streets. There's some piazzas. And there's always like one giant church with a big square in front of it. So they're fun. They're perfect size to like go and do in a few hours too.
Yeah, they are like the perfect size for that. You can just kind of walk around, and
They're not that big, you know.
so we were there in the evening, which was nice because I think San Gimignano is
It's more touristy.
pretty touristy, and but when we were there in the evening, it was really
It was pretty
quiet.
dead.
It's great. We had a really good
Oh
dinner.
yeah, we had a great dinner.
It was really good, and then we just went back.
Yeah, Claire shopped a tiny bit, but most of the stores had closed down. So we kind of mulled around, got some gelato. Saw they have like this one spot that's kind of an overlook, which was
Mm.
nice. And we kind of hung out a little bit and then went back.
Yeah, and then the next day we got up. We weren't moving real fast,
Well, we also had like the internet issues where we don't have internet in
right?
our room, but in theory we have it down at the main area where like the tasting room, which is a 3 or 4 minute walk. So we would go down to walk down there to try and connect to the internet to find maps and send an email and do this and that. And then like the internet down there would be kind of sketchy. Like it would go in and out and in
It's
and out.
complicated.
And so we were trying to sit there, but then after a while, like we tried to upload our Cinque Terre video from there, like the first day, and it just like wouldn't
Yeah.
go. So then we're like, okay, we're just wasting time, so we just take off. And so that's why we didn't upload any videos, and we also didn't email anyone. And Claire didn't have cell service, which was not. I mean, it sounds like, oh my god, I didn't have cell service. It was fine for the most part.
Well, we've been relying
We
heavily on Google Maps.
very
And
heavily.
so suddenly when you have no service, it can sort of figure out where you are, but like you can't plot any routes
It
and
was really fine until when we left and we were trying to get back to Florence, and it was a little we were struggling tiny little bit to get back, but because the first day we went to Volterra, which is like one of the older and still more less touristy of the towns, and it's only like half an hour away, so it's pretty easy because you turn, you start going, and if you make it to a major intersection in these little tiny roads, it'll say Volterra this way, and so you can just follow it. So we did okay in that regard. We had a hard time parking.
oh my god, mommy would
Grande
have
would
died.
have, yeah, just
It
been
was like
absolutely
a
dead
hot mess of
because
parking.
they really didn't care about parking. I mean, they didn't make like this grand effort for the tourists. So it was like there's a bunch of lots just everywhere,
Like half of them were from
and
residents, and then we parked
it
in
was
one
really
spot. We
confusing.
were like, I don't think we can park here, and we asked
Yeah,
the police person. They're like, no, you can't park there. So
we ended
figured
up
it out,
parking
but
and going in, and then I had to come back, and I didn't have to move the car, but I moved it and paid a little more, and we it was ended up being fine, but it was a mess originally. But we drove around the town about two
yeah,
times,
we did nice too.
so we got to see.
But Volterra was really nice. We were planning on going to maybe like two towns that day, or two or even three, because Volterra was probably the biggest one. But we ended up just spending most of the afternoon in Volterra, and I think it worked out really
Yeah,
well.
Claire
Um,
got to shop. We did the little walk, which Rick Steves had, which had like an old Etruscan arch
yeah, it
from.
has one of like the only remaining, it sounds like, Etruscan arches.
So it's like of the Greek time, but obviously in Italy.
Yeah, I don't know much
Um,
about the Etruscans except they
it's
were
like
like
think
pre-Roman.
pre-Roman, like around when the Greeks were in their heyday, but obviously they're in like northern Italy. And it was really cool. And there was a cool story about in World War II how the Nazis were going to blow up the arch to slow down the Allies, and all the townspeople broke up the cobblestones, like they're big, they're like at least a foot by a foot stones that pave the street, and they piled them all up inside the arch so that it would be blocked. And they said, "So you don't have to blow up the arch." So they left the arch, and it's still standing today. Um,
So we had lunch. Yeah, we pretty
we
much
had
just
lunch, we
walked all over the
lounged.
town, and
Claire
really
shopped. Is that where you got your shoes? Yeah, Claire got a pair of leather shoes, which are really cool and unique.
and then we went back to Cesani.
And when we were driving, it started pouring, so we timed that really
Every
well.
time it has poured, which has been quite a few times, we've always managed to be
In
in the car
transit,
or
in perfect
inside or
cover. Yeah,
something.
like in Rome one time, we came back and we literally got in the door, and then this huge thunderstorm came through, and it was like, well, we timed that well.
Right. We've
So
never
another
actually really been
instance
outside when it's raining, which
of
is
timing well. So we made it back.
yeah.
We went to a wine tasting, which was very pleasant at Chisani, where we're staying. That's when we uploaded the last video because we were sitting in the common room long enough.
Yeah, it was nice. Tuscany's pretty much known for its reds. Um, like Chianti is from Chianti, the region of Chianti is not far away. Um, but right around San Gimignano, there's a grape called Vernaccia, and they're very well known for their white Vernaccia wine, which is unique.
So they had some